Oh, hello. You caught me swatching. I'm just going to finish this row and then I can carry on and talk to you. Here we go. Just do the slip stitch edging at the end of this little swatch. There we go. And hello and welcome to this, the 77th edition of the Sockmatician podcast. My name is Nathan Taylor, also known as Sockmatician on the whole of the web, on Instagram, YouTube, and on Ravelry. And I am delighted to welcome you to this 77th episode. It's been a while since my last podcast, and I was going to apologise for that, but I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to be kinder to myself than that and say the world is a strange and crazy place at the moment, and I am not going to dwell too much on the COVID-19 / coronavirus / lockdown / restrictions / all of that nonsense. I say nonsense because it's the only way I can deal with it, really. It's not nonsense at all. It's incredibly serious, and it's taking its toll on a lot of different elements and areas of people's lives and indeed deaths. And to anybody who's watching this who has been directly affected by tragedy and loss pertaining to COVID-19 and the complications that can arise to it, I am so deeply sorry for your losses, and I hope that you are managing to keep strong and healthy and well with your loved ones. It's a difficult time, isn't it? I'll talk about this very briefly, and then I'll move on to happier things. I myself I've been struggling a lot recently, and I don't mind admitting it. I wasn't going to go into all of this, and this is certainly not a quest for sympathy or anything like that. I am aware that the mental health ramifications of being in isolation or lockdown vary greatly from person to person. I started this whole thing a couple of months ago by being incredibly pragmatic about it all, and more recently I've started to feel sort of the anxiety and the worry that goes with this kind of thing a little bit more keenly. And I don't want to dwell on all of that because I would like this to be an uplifting podcast and something to sort of take people's minds off and distract people from what's going on in the world as much as possible. If you want some kind of solace and refuge, I want you to be able to find it here. But I think it would be disingenuous of me not to talk about it a little bit, and just to say, if you are struggling, if you are feeling that everything is too much and it's overwhelming and you don't know where to turn, you're not alone. You're really not alone. And I consider myself in many, many ways to be one of the lucky people in situations like this. I don't live alone. I have a wonderful husband, and we work well together. I know some people are finding it very difficult to be suddenly thrust into their partner's company for long periods of time where they're not used to that, perhaps. It's a strange statistic that a lot of people who are living together in a relationship actually only spend 2 or 3 hours in each other's company every day because of working environments being up in different places, sleep for a lot of it, and all sorts of reasons like that. So you come together in the evenings, and then suddenly for people who are not able to work at the moment, maybe they've been furloughed, or maybe their work just isn't happening, or maybe they are working from home, they're in each other's company quite a lot, and I know that's very difficult. Ben and I are very good in that respect. We find it very easy to get along in each other's company. We're very lucky as well. I have this room, which is my study, and Ben uses the living room. So we do spend time apart in the day, and we come together at breakfast, lunch, walk time, and often in the evening we'll have a stroll around in the evening and around our local area if we haven't done our daily exercise, and then we sort of spend time watching television together in the evening, and we've got similar tastes in the television that we enjoy as well. So we're very, very lucky in that respect. My heart goes out, genuinely, my heart goes out to anybody who is currently living alone and feeling very isolated and lonely. I'm so sorry that you would be in that situation. It must be terribly, terribly difficult, particularly for anybody who feels that they get a lot of energy from social interaction. I'm one of those people. I know that's an extrovert tendency. I don't consider myself to be an extrovert, oddly. I know a lot of people think that I am, but I rather think that I have more introvert tendencies, which I have learnt to not cover up, but to cocoon inside the bravado of an extrovert exterior. And it's interesting, the longer you cocoon yourself in something like that, the more that cocoon becomes your shield, and the more that shield becomes part of you. And I think that's where I am really in life, and I think that's who I am. But it is certainly true that I do get a lot of the energy that I thrive on from interacting with other people. And obviously for anybody who is living alone at the moment, that's not possible. And it must be terribly, terribly difficult. Don't get me wrong, of course there are people who are going, well, I don't like people much anyway, and I don't like going out with strangers, and I don't like being surrounded by people I don't know, or even people I do know. And for those people, I think the isolation issues will be different, but I'm certainly not going to suggest that everybody is, or anybody is, getting off scot-free. We hear a lot on the television at the moment, and on the news, and on adverts, and on all kinds of magazine programmes that we have to look after the children who are home from school. We've got to find ways of looking after the children and doing things for the children and entertaining the children and distracting the children and making sure the children are well looked after. And of course that's all true, but not everybody lives in a household with children. And I think what we're forgetting about is the people who are living alone. So this is to anybody. Obviously this podcast is always for anyone and everyone, but I'm specifically dedicating this episode to anybody who is struggling with the fears and isolations that living alone can bring. And I'm telling you that you are not alone. Not completely. You may live alone, but you are not alone. There are plenty of people who have your best interests at heart. I'm one of them, and I very much hope that this will be a distracting and entertaining diversion from your day. So, back to what I was saying. I've been struggling quite a lot recently with feelings of motivation. This last week particularly, 10 days, maybe a couple of weeks, I've been lacking any energy and drive to be able to get off my backside and do the things I need to do. I'm very aware that a lot of people are going to be treating this lockdown period, wherever you are in the world, whatever level your restrictions are at, but treating this period as an opportunity to blitz the house, learn a new language, get fit, lose weight, do all the things that you don't normally have the time to do. And I applaud you for that. I'm not going to be in that camp, unfortunately. I realise this. My energy levels have dipped a lot. As I said, I think that's partly social, but I think it's to do with feelings of anxiety and uncertainty, which a lot of people share at the moment. I'm aware of that. Just the more I talk to people, the more I realise how many people are struggling and suffering through this time. I am sleeping a lot, and I know that that's my own particular sort of body's coping mechanism with stress and anxiety. I sort of tend to run away, and sleep is a very, very good way of not having to experience anything at all. So I'm finding it very difficult to get motivated to get up in the mornings, to do anything particular in the day that I need to do, and I'm working through that. This is not a whinge. This is not it's not a quest for sympathy. It's just a check-in, really. I've been attending some group therapy sessions for various things that I've had going on in my life over the last year or so, and they sort of moved on to Zoom. Zoom is obviously the technology of the of this period that is bringing more people together than ever before, and a lot of things are moving on to online capabilities and processes like vid calling and conferencing stuff. And the therapy sessions I've been going to, people are all saying the same thing, that I'm hearing the same stories over and over again. Essentially, it's tough, it's difficult, and what I think we need to do is, as a society, and by that I don't mean my local community, I don't mean my city, I don't mean my county, my country, my continent, I mean globally as a society, we need to focus as much as we can in this time on being kind. And that's kindness in two directions, I think. Kindness to yourself and kindness to those around us. I am desperately trying to remind myself all the time that other people's struggles are not my own. My struggles are not other people's, and that we are all entitled to process and deal with those struggles in whatever way we feel is going to have the most successful outcome for us. And we must afford that privilege to other people as well. So I think if I believe that I need to do certain things and I need to behave in a certain way in order to get through this, I must allow that somebody may feel differently about the way that they need to behave. And it's largely just about being considerate and caring for other people. So if I'm in the street or in a shop and somebody is standing a little bit too close to me and I feel a little bit uncomfortable about that, it is within my power to move away. It is not for me to necessarily shame them or get at them for not adhering to the physical distancing regulations in place at the moment. Consequently, if I feel that somebody is shielding themselves a little bit too much and therefore making me feel like I'm dirty or sort of turning their faces away as they walk anywhere near me, it is within my power to say that's for their anxiety and they need to deal with this the way they want to. So I'm urging everybody actually to remember, it's Plato's words and they come back to me again and again, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. I think I didn't expect that to move me like this. I'm struggling a lot with motivation and energy, and this podcast has suffered as a result of that. I'm aware of that. I have missed you all. I have missed putting together these podcast episodes, but I've been putting them off for various reasons. And isn't it interesting? Some of the things I've been talking about in the group therapies is the things that, the lies we can tell ourselves, the ways in which we can kid ourselves that we're doing one thing for a certain reason when actually it's for a completely different reason. And I think one of the most useful pieces of information that I am trying to take on board is the simple old adage, know thyself. Being honest with myself about what I need and what motivates me in certain actions, I think is really, really important. So I have thought, I was lying to myself, shall we say. I had thought that one of the reasons why I wasn't doing this podcast is because, well, in lockdown, there's not a great deal of knitting time. I don't have much content. And I had been working on my enormous poncho, which I know you've all seen. And I wanted to get that finished before I showed it because, okay, so I showed it in 1 week and it had a few more rows on it and it essentially wasn't changing. Spoiler alert, it is now finished. And I will be showing it later on in the podcast. And I am really, really excited to be able to share that with you. It's actually been finished for about a week. But again, the lies we tell ourselves. I wanted to finish the podcast finish the poncho before I podcasted again. And I realised that I had finished the poncho and I still wasn't podcasting. So clearly there was something else afoot. And it was my default setting of feeling pressure, responsibility of doing things, making me just want to turn around and run away in the opposite direction. Know thyself. And the thing is, I do know myself pretty well. I do know what triggers me into certain avoidance behaviours, and I'm aware of it even as I'm doing them, even as I'm telling myself I'm doing it for different reasons. I'm aware on some level. It's just that these things are sometimes difficult to these habits are difficult to break, aren't they? So I am trying to envelop myself in processes of self-care at the moment. I really am trying to make sure that I don't give myself too much of a hard time. I urge everyone else not not to follow suit. I don't mean about not giving me a hard time, about giving yourselves a hard time. Don't do it. Don't say the word should. Try not to use should. I think it's one of the most damaging words in the English language, or in any language really, however it translates. Should it confers responsibility. It puts pressure on people. I should be doing this. Oh, I know I'm not doing this. So I should behave like this. I should feel like this. We should all dispense with it. There's a paradox, isn't it? So I am trying to allow myself to go easy. Now that's not to let myself off the hook completely, and not to allow myself to fall into a complete stupor or a torpor where I don't get anything done. But it's just a case of thinking, well, let's focus on the positive things. A friend of mine recently was telling me about his gratitude journal. He's had a lot of mental health issues over the last few years and lots of depression. And one of the things that he holds on to every night is, at the end of every day, he writes his little gratitude journal, and he just notes down the things in that day that have made him feel grateful. And it's about focusing, for him, it's about focusing on positive ideals. And I think there's a lot of space in life for that at the moment. I feel I probably would benefit from doing something like that. Not that I should. I caught myself. Did you hear that? I caught myself. I would benefit from that. And he's also recently added different columns to his gratitude journal. It's not just about gratitude. He's listing the things that he is grateful for, but also the things that he is proud of. They're not always the same thing, so achievements that he's done in the day. And he's also added a column for things to forgive himself for. And I think that's really, really honest. And again, forgiving yourself is not dropping the ball. It's not saying, to hell with it, I don't care. It's not about that. Forgiving yourself is just knowing that sometimes, in some moments, some things are beyond your strength or beyond your endeavour and beyond your ability. And I think it's useful to know that, and again, not to give yourself a hard time for those things. So be kind to yourself and be kind to others too. Right, let's get on with the podcast. As I said at the top of this episode, this is the 77th podcast episode from the Sockmatician studio. I say business studio. And I have got some information up on screen here, as I have recently tended to do, pertaining to the number 77. And so here we go. In mathematics, 77, you're going to love this. 77, it doesn't even list it here, obviously, and I'm just going to say this outright. It's a palindromic number. A palindrome has nothing to do with maths, of course. It's mostly to do with language, but it's anything which is read the same backwards as forwards. So there are some fabulous palindromes out there in language. Do palindromes exist in other languages? Is it something that other people do? So if you're watching this podcast episode and you are I was going to say not a native English speaker, but you might be. If you speak a second language, are you aware that palindromes are a thing in any other languages? I'd dearly love to hear some examples, actually. So if you want to write to me, the best way to do that is probably... I'll just do it in the comments on this. I was going to try and collate everything, but the comments on here. And if you wouldn't mind saying, writing out the palindrome and its translation, and let me know what language it is, in case if it's not something that I would immediately recognise, for example. And so examples of English palindromes: Madam, I'm Adam is written the same backwards as forwards. So live not on evil. And a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. That's the longest one I know of, but so 77 is only a 2-digit palindrome, but it's 747, of course, would be a palindrome, 7337, you know what I'm talking about. So that's not even on the Wikipedia page, that's just my little nugget, little bonus there for you. It is the... We're already going deep. There's not much to say about 77 like there have been about other things, which isn't sort of like high-powered number theory. 77 is the 22nd discrete semi-prime. Now, a semi-prime, we've talked about prime numbers before, so you know what a prime number is. A prime number is a number which is only divisible by number 1 and itself. So 2 is the first prime number because this is divisible by 1 and 2. 2 is obviously also the only even prime number. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, 31. Those are the prime numbers as they go, because they're only divisible by themselves and the number 1. Now, a semi-prime is a number which is the product of 2 primes. So product is when you multiply things together. So for example, 77 qualifies because it is the product of 7, which is a prime number, multiplied by 11, which is another prime number. So it's semi-prime, so it's 2 prime numbers multiplied together. Now, these 2 prime numbers don't necessarily have to be different from each other. So if it were 7 multiplied by 7, that's still a semi-prime number. It's also the square of 7, because it's 7 multiplied by itself, which would obviously be 49. Now, so that's semi-primes dealt with. Now, a discrete semi-prime, and it doesn't mean one that's being quite tactful. One of my big, okay, grammar rant coming on. One of my big bugbears in life, but generally, but online particularly, is when I see somebody misspelling the word discrete when they mean I'm being quiet, I'm being tactful, I'm being diplomatic about something. That form of discretion, that is EET at the end of the word. Now, of course, so many people, forgive me if I'm teaching Granny to suck eggs or Grandad to lick a lollipop. I don't know. I don't know why eggs have to come into it. There is another word, discrete, spelt Discrete, as opposed to EET, and that means separate, distinct, or apart from. So two people can enter a room discreetly with an EET by going. That would be a discrete way of 2 people entering the room, or 2 people can enter the room discreetly by coming in one and then the other. They have separately entered the room, and that would be ETE. And this is the spelling that we're talking about when it's a discrete semi-prime. So a discrete semi-prime is not only a number which is the product of 2 prime numbers, as 77 is, but it discounts those which are the product of the same prime number twice, so the squares. So 5 multiplied by 5, 6 multiplied by 6, 7 multiplied by 7, they are taken out of the order of discrete semi-primes, and 77 therefore becomes the 22nd discrete semi-prime number. Are you with me? Please stay with me, please don't leave. It is also, I'm not even going to go into this, but if you want to look it up, it's a Bloom integer, since both 7 and 11, its 2 prime factors, are Gaussian primes. Now, I'm not going to even go into any of that. I've said it, that should be enough. This is kind of fun. This is my favourite fact about 77. It is the sum, as in what you get when you add things together, it is the sum of 3 consecutive squares. So 77 equals 4 squared plus 5 squared plus 6 squared. I think that's rather cool. I really do, I like that. So 4 squared is obviously 16, 5 squared is 25, and 6 squared is 36. And if you add 16 to 25, you get 41, and if you add 36 to that, you get 77. How exciting is that? I like that. It is also, interestingly, the sum, again added together, it's the sum of the first 8 prime numbers. So that would be 2 plus 3 equals 5, plus 5 equals 10, but I could get this wrong, aren't I? Plus 7 equals 17, plus 11 equals 28, plus 13, I'm doing this off the top of my head, 13 is 41, plus 17 is 58, plus 19, 77. Yes. that is not something I necessarily should be quite so pathetically and tragically pleased with. To be honest, in this whole sleeping a lot thing that I was talking about earlier, my brain has been a little bit on shutdown and it's not its sharpest self. So the reason I'm pathetically pleased with that is because it does mean that something cognitively is working up here after all. Thank you. It is the number of integer partitions of the number 12, and oddly it has another relationship with the number 12. It is the number of digits of the 12th perfect number. I'm not going to go into partitions, but I am going to talk about perfect numbers. So perfect numbers are kind of weird. They're perfect, obviously, and that's not very usual because not many things in life are perfect. So in order to be perfect, that would make it weird, right? A perfect number is one where you add all of its divisors together apart from itself, because a number can always be divided by itself and give you the answer 1. And adding up all of those divisors will give you the number itself. Right? What? Let's talk about the first perfect number is 6. 6 can be divided by 1 and 2 and 3 and 6. 6 divided by 1 is 6, 6 divided by 2 is 3, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 6 divided by 6 is 1. So those are the 4. So 1, 2, 3 and 6 are the 4 divisors of the number 6. Now if you take off the number itself, which is 6, you're left with 1, 2 and 3. And if you add 1 plus 2 equals 3 plus 3 equals 6, you add those divisors together and you get the number itself. That's a perfect number. There aren't very many of them. I said they were weird. They don't happen very frequently in maths. The next one. This stuff was worked out by mathematicians like Euclid in like 300. Is it 300 years BC? 300 BC. This is like extraordinary stuff. And it is thought that all perfect numbers are even. It's thought that there are no odd perfect numbers. This is a bit oblique. Remember, I'm talking about this because it interested me, not because 77 is a perfect number. It is, of course, odd. There are only 4 perfect numbers under 10,000. The second one is 28. I'm trying to think what its divisors would be. I haven't looked at this. It'd be 1, 2, 14 and 28. 1, 2, 14, 7. 1, 2, 7 and 14 and 28, I think. So let's add those to take off 28 and have 14 plus 7. Oh, 4. 1, 2, 4, 7 and 14 and 28. 1, 2, 4, 7, 14 and 28. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 4 is 7, plus 7 is 14, plus 14 is 28. Works nicely, doesn't it? So I'm getting there. The next one I'm not going to do is 496. And the next one above that is 8,128. So there aren't very many of them. The 12th perfect number in the sequence has 77 digits. It's a large number. Let's look no further at that. There are some... Oh, it's also the lowest natural number. It's the smallest positive integer requiring 5 syllables in English. 77. That's what we can all... Sure, I'm going to stop there. So there are other things as well. There's it's in science, it happens to be the atomic number of iridium, and it is the boiling point of nitrogen. I'm assuming that's 77 Kelvin. It was also in World War II in Sweden at the border with Norway. The Swedish word for 77 was used as a bit of a password because of the tricky pronunciation in Swedish, made it easy to instantly discern whether the speaker was native Swedish, Norwegian or German. Isn't that fun? I like that. And there we are, 77. Let's talk about some knitting stuff, shall we? Let's do a bit of a roundup. I haven't been entirely inactive while I've been in lockdown. I have been doing a little bit of knitting on the poncho. That was taking up most of my time, I have to say, if I was knitting at all. Again, having a lack of motivation meant that my hands just felt tired and listless, and I felt a bit apathetic and lethargic most of the time, indolent, shall we say. And there's lots of words for, I was going to say laziness, and I'm going to take a leaf out of my own book and be kinder to myself and just say part of the things I was finding difficulty was finding energy. I was not being lazy, I was having trouble finding energy. So I wasn't knitting as much as I would have liked to have done, or would like to have done. But when I was knitting, I was knitting on the poncho, and that was marvellous because it is pretty damn brainless. It's easy, very, very simple 4-row repeat, and every 6 repeats I change colour. Nice and simple, really, really nice and simple. And it was getting large. I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll tell you about that when I show it. But one of the other things I have been doing is trying to be as social with other people as I possibly can via online means, and Zoom has been a wonderful way of doing that. So yes, I've had the therapy sessions, but with friends and family as well. I have got in touch with people I haven't seen for many years, and we're able to sort of see each other kind of face to face through the screens, which is wonderful. But one of the things that Ben and I did a week ago, it's just coming up for a week ago, last Sunday, we hosted, because obviously the Eurovision Song Contest is not happening this year, which is a terrible, terrible shame, but obviously the right thing to do under the circumstances, don't get me wrong, but I'm still sad about it. And we decided we were going to host our own Zoom Eurovision Song Contest. It's really exciting. It was absolutely amazing. So we, Ben and I chose 12 songs from the history of Eurovision, but 12, more of them came from sort of more recent years, maybe the last 10 years or so, and a few more vintage offerings as well. And we found the videos of those performances online on YouTube and got those all set up. We also basically we invited friends and family to use Zoom, so we would all be together in the same place online, you know what I mean. And Ben and I would host the event, so we had most people on mute all the time, because with large numbers of people it gets a little bit unwieldy sometimes if everyone's chatting all at the same time, no one can hear anything. So we were structuring the evening, but we had asked people to invent a fictional country that they were going to be there that night representing, and along with that could go the reason why their country was named what it was. They could tell us a little bit about the culture, we wanted people, if they could spare the time, to design a flag for their country. Many people did, talk about the national dress, to talk about its geography and its economy, and that sounds terribly dull, in silly ways, and making it fun things. And some people had a national anthem, and some people had a national dance, and we had all of these things. So, and the people that we'd invited, largely family, but a lot of our friends as well, who would normally, Ben and I host a Eurovision Song Contest party every year. It seemed such a shame for us not to do that this year, so this was our way of getting around it. So a lot of the people who would normally have come, we invited via Zoom. We had 23 different households in our Zoom meeting, from all over the world actually, and some of those people were people who were in complete isolation and had been for a long time. We had one family from Italy, and I know that people in Italy have been suffering on very, very tight strictures, and so it was really interesting to hear their, obviously they weren't from Italy that night, they were calling us from their fictional country, but we still had a little time to get their perspective on things as well. And so 23 households, some with families, some with individuals or pairs of people. We reached 50 people. It took us 2 hours, and we played our 12 songs, and we go in and we'd interview. So blimey, I had spent ages really, really learning how to use Zoom properly. So we had screen shares going on. Ben and I had, I was dressed in a gold lame shirt, of course I was. Ben was in a tuxedo, but we had as our background, a virtual background, which I found this wonderful photograph of the set of the Eurovision Song Contest for a couple of years ago, so it looked like we were actually standing on the stage giving our presentation there. We had designed our flag, I'll say a little bit about our country in a minute. And so we were able to have that behind us as well at certain points. And we would cut in between the songs, we would cut to a different family and spotlight them so that everyone could see what they were doing, and they could talk to us. And a lot of people had involved their children, and it was just absolutely magical. It really, really was. I got very moved, actually. We were representing the fictional and newly formed pan-geographical country of Zuzumia. Zuzumia had been recently formed with the express intention of bringing people together and making us all realise that we are all in this together, we are all one, and that we don't need to have borders, we don't need to have physical proximity, but we can all come together via the medium of the internet. That was the whole point of it. So our flag was, there are two versions of the flag. I quite like the second one, which we didn't end up using, but so there's two versions of the Zuzumian flag. We wanted to go back to the idea of Ben and I, obviously very proud gay men, and we very much love the Pride rainbow flag with its 6 stripes, which encompass, and the whole point of the rainbow aspect of it is, even though it's only 6 stripes, it is still the full rainbow, and therefore it encompasses everybody. So we wanted to use those 6 colours somehow, and rather than have them in a linear fashion, I wanted it to be sort of much more global than that. So we had them going around the circle like the segments of an orange, and I wanted to put them slightly, they weren't all upright and symmetrical. I wanted it all to be off on a funny angle to show that the world is a bit off kilter at the moment. So that was the reasoning behind us, and it looks like this. Here is the Zuzumian flag. I really, really like it. Then we've got the other one, which looks a bit more flag-like. I'll have to discuss this with Ben and see what he likes, but this is the alternative Zuzumian flag. So we had a lovely time doing it. We genuinely did, and it was all, as I said, it was all about bringing people together and just seeing everybody. Every single person on that screen was somebody I know well and somebody I love, and everyone stayed till the end. Everyone got involved. It was charming and wonderful and life-affirming and energy-giving and revitalising beyond all measure. In fact, Nick, she's living on her own at the moment, and she's suffering a lot from the actual isolation. Doesn't really see anybody, doesn't have anyone that she can go and see. She lives in London in her own flat. You know, she's my age, and she said afterwards she stuck around for a long time afterwards, because we didn't once it finished, we just allowed anyone to be part of an open chat. We didn't dismiss anyone or close the room until everyone had gone, and she stayed around for one of the longest, and she said it was the most entertaining night and the most fun she had since lockdown started 7-8 weeks ago. So that meant a lot to me. I spent most of the evening blubbing and welling up in tears. So that was that. I have actually made a new friend as well, and we went out for. He's someone I have known from the local area. He lives about a mile away from here, and he and I had been messaging each other for a couple of years actually, but we'd never actually met. And I realised that he'd been messaging me with sort of greater frequency, and that I hadn't been really getting back to him, and I felt bad about this. So I picked up and said, I'm so sorry, I hadn't given you is everything okay? Are you well? I am here and I am listening. And he lives on his own, and he asked if we could meet for a socially distanced walk. So we had to be very careful about this, because we wanted to go somewhere where we could both walk. His car was in the garage, so we met, and I did actually pick him up from his house in my car, but we were very, very careful about it. He sat in the back, not directly behind me, but in the back passenger seat, with the window open, and he was wearing sunglasses and a scarf wrapped several times around his mouth and nose, and we made sure that once we got out of that he was far enough away from me as I got out, and we kept our 2-meter distance, and we went for a lovely walk, and it was really lovely. We didn't spend much time together in an enclosed environment because it was only like a sort of 6-minute drive either, from his house to where we were walking, which was on Hampstead Heath, and from Hampstead Heath back to where I dropped him off again. But we were very strict about it. At one point we did find a park bench that was long enough for us both to be able to sit on, and we sat at opposite ends, and we were able to sort of talk forwards rather than over on top of each other. And whether or not people think that that's good enough, actually I don't care. It was good enough for us, and it made us feel like we were reaching each other while still paying attention to the restrictions. It was really important. And again, he's someone who lives alone. He has various reasons for needing to stay alone, but I could tell that he also really needed to reach out to somebody and be reached by somebody, and I don't regret it at all. I won't regret it. We got on very, very well. He's a very nice guy, and in fact we are going for another socially distanced walk. This was 3 weeks ago, but we're going for another one this weekend. I haven't decided yet whether it's going to be tomorrow or Sunday. I suspect it'll be Sunday now. This is Friday, by the way. This is Friday the 7th. I don't even know what the dates are. Isn't it funny when everything just sort of... It's the 8th, Friday the 8th of May today. So those are the kind of things that I've been doing in my lockdown, and also Ben and I, we go for a lovely walk every day. We're very, very lucky. 10 minutes away from here, we have what's it called? Dollis Park Walk. The Dollis Park Walk, which is down by a little river, and it's very busy, and it can be difficult to pass people on some of the narrower areas at 2 meters. But we're very, very, what I've noticed a big shift, and I really like this shift, where people are now automatically hanging back or walking between 2 parked cars so that someone can walk there before continuing onwards. Whereas before people were eyeing each other with a great deal of suspicion because everybody was contaminant and everybody was a potential killer, and and people really shut themselves off as community members, which I found very distressing and difficult to deal with. What I'm finding now is the more people are considerate for each other. So I've had COVID-19. What that means for my immunity, no one really knows for sure, but the likelihood is that it's going to be more difficult for me to catch it anytime soon, particularly. And if I were able to catch it again, it would likely be less severe. So my fears for myself are less, I think, than if I was somebody who hadn't had it and I was very anxious about catching it. But even so, I'm always very considerate and careful about other people's anxiety and them. So I take wide berths around people if I'm having to pass people, either coming towards me or overtake them. I will walk out into the road in order to do it obviously safely, Green Cross Code notwithstanding. And I have found recently that when people are doing this and people are being obviously very considerate, what's happening is now people are looking at each other and smiling and saying thank you. And I think that's really, really important, and that's lifting my spirits a lot. So we saw something chalked on the path today. We went out for an early walk today, and it said you can still, I can't remember what the wording was, you can still show... I'll put it here. I'll get the Ben photograph. I'll put it in here for you. Look at that. You can still be considerate with each other, and you can still be distant, but you can still smile. I think that's really, really important, and that's what I'm seeing more often now. As people move around each other, people will tend to look and make eye contact. Eye contact that's not just, Ben and I call it, it's not a smile, it's a lip lengthening. You know, that kind of thing where you don't want to make someone's eye contact, but you want to kind of acknowledge them and not be rude, so you just look at them and go. It's just like, that happens, but this doesn't. This is a smile. It reaches the whole face. This is a lip lengthening. And I'm seeing less of that. I'm seeing more genuine interaction from a distance, and it's really gladdening my heart. So, I before, oh, this was from our walk today. Actually, we in the glen that we go to, there is an absolute carpet of wild garlic, and this is wild garlic. It smells amazing. It smells really like spring onions and guts and fresh salad. Isn't that beautiful? So this is the wild garlic that is growing everywhere. There's a whole carpet of it in the forest glen that we go walking in, and you could, as you walk in, you can just smell it. You're walking through these little paths, and either side there's this carpet of these beautiful globe-like flowers. It's absolutely lovely. So that came home with me today as a little reminder that all is not dreadful in the world. All can still be very beautiful, and let's have it there in shot. There you go. And one of the things, before I talk about the poncho, one of the things I have been doing is this last few days I've been knitting swatches. In fact, you saw me knitting it at the top of this episode. And at the moment, this is just a plain piece of double-knitted brioche, dark purple knit stitches on that side and pale purple knit stitches on that side. But it is going to become something that looks rather like this. I haven't woven in any of the ends yet. To the back so you can see. So that, look, it's a mess, right? Ugly. That's very deliberate. These aren't. You might think that that's supposed to look like a line of centered double decreases. It's not. There are actually 5 different types of decrease on here. The bottom one is a right leaning decrease, which is like knit 3 together on the facing side of the fabric. Obviously it's totally reversible, so it's the same on both sides. The next one up is what would be an SSSK, so a double decrease, 3 stitches into 1. SSSK, slip, slip, slip knit, the same as a slip, slip knit, but using a third stitch in there. Then you've got, I've tried to include all of the different incarnations of 3 stitches into 1. Basically, yes, of course, it's 3 pairs of stitches into 1 pair of stitches because it is double knitted brioche, but so essentially, if you've got 3, I'll try and hide my face here. If you've got 3 stitches and you want 1 stitch to result from those 3, you can either stack them up all on top of each other that way, stack them up all on top of each other that way, or you can have the centered double decrease, which brings the center stitch to the front. There are 2 versions of that because you can have the back 2 stitches crossed that way or that way, but essentially they look the same, so I only ever bother with the standard way of doing it. Or you've got one where the center stitch comes to the back and the front 2 stitches, the side 2 stitches, either cross over that way or that way. As far as I'm aware, that's all of the different ways that those 3 stitches can end up being configured in a double decrease. And of course, what I do with double knitted brioche is make sure that if there's one looking like that on the front, then it's also looking like that on the back. So you pair everything up the same way you would in ordinary double knitting. So I've got all of those 5 decreases there, but done the ugly way. Can you see there's dark bits of, this is the simplest way, but this is the sort of a way of showing how you can tidy things up in double-knitted brioche with a little bit of extra care, a little bit of extra work, or doing things slightly differently. There's lots of different ways you can achieve the same results, but varying levels of neatness, I guess. But sometimes that, if they were all centered double decreases, all done even the sort of the untidy way, it wouldn't look that messy. That's only because there's 5 different types of double decrease there. So what I've done is I've got these 3 pieces, which are all ostensibly exactly the same, but they're all done in the different ways. Let me just sort of bring out which one is which. This is, so you can see this line of, actually, you know what, that light down here so you can see. So this line of right leaning decreases there, you can see little colour blips of the light purple just catching in the way there. So between those 2 dark purple stitches between my fingernails there's that light purple strand there. So I'm trying to, there you go. So that's, but even so, they're all done the same way, and because they're all the same decrease, that's still perfectly acceptable, I think. And on the other side, it looks like that with the dark purple strand just blipping a little bit there, but still very nice, neat and tidy way of doing the decreases. It's all very, very nice. And unlike ordinary brioche, traditional brioche, it is completely reversible. So we've got this lovely line cutting through there. On the other side, it cuts the other way. Very, very nice indeed. Now, there are lots of different ways of managing this and getting rid of those little colour blips. And this is one. Bring that light back down again. There we go. So here we've got the same set of decreases going across here, but as you can see, look, there's absolutely no colour blips in there at all. It's just dark purple line meeting dark purple line. Might be easier to see on the other side. There we are. Just cuts straight into there like it's at right angles really. You can see how neat and tidy that is. Lovely. The third way of doing that is to do what I call a decrease setup row, the row before you do the decreases every time, so the off rows, and it slightly changes how the yarn overs. So on the dark purple side, we've got these light coloured yarn overs there. It slightly changes how all of that, or how they lie. So if I were to compare the two of these here, you can see that in this gutter here, the one that goes to the side of where the decreases are, the yarn overs look like that. They're very sort of neat and uniform there and in pairs going down that side, whereas in this one there don't appear to be the same number of them. Now that's because there aren't. It creates a different structure in the fabric. This particular version is again so beautifully tidy with no colour blips at all, same on both sides, but it does alter things slightly in the structure of the fabric, and the reason for that is because in the setup row what you're doing is whereas normally every stitch has a yarn over in brioche, in Double-Knitted Brioche every stitch has a yarn over, what you're doing for the two stitches that are going to be used into like the knit two together part of that, there's only one yarn over both, covering both those stitches, so there's less bulking in the structure of the fabric. If I pinch along that decrease line there, it's less bulky than that one, where there's definitely a sort of a scrunching of the yarn overs all coming together at the back. It will all be explained in the book, I promise, and I've got more on the go because I want to demonstrate more versions of more decreases all the time. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of days. But I know what you really, really want to see is the poncho. Of course, I've left it to the sun comes in here beautifully in the evening. This room gets very, very warm and I can't really open the door because it'll knock the camera where I've got everything, so the door is right in front of me there. So now it's got quite warm in here, as it tends to do, and I want to wear this poncho because it is really, really warm. Yesterday, Ben and I went back to Hampstead Heath, and we took a lot of photographs from of the poncho, and I'll put a little montage of photographs at the end of this podcast. I won't do that. I won't sort of pull them in now because it's just takes too long on the editing, but I'll show you a little montage of them. Actually, why don't I do that now? No, I won't. I'll show the poncho first and then I'll do it. Come on then, don't get ahead of yourself. So the poncho is finished. The poncho is huge. It's really, really heavy, really hungry, and it looks like this. And it's enormous. And you know me, and a Pride Rainbow flag. It's got all the colours of the Pride Rainbow flag, red on the cowl collar, then it's got the orange around the yoke there, and then the body is the yellow, green, blue and purple. And it's all double-knitted brioche, of course, and it's all in this lovely zigzag chevrons. Now, the version I've done of the decreases on here is the third one, so the one with the setup. And as you can see, it makes for this very, very, very tidy, actually probably looks more useful to see that as decreases going that way. They're very neat and tidy. They are absolutely blip free, and they are absolutely reversible and blip free on the other side as well. So the moment of truth. Here we go. Let's slip this bad boy on, and I will what I might do is I might try and move my camera a little bit, forgive the noises or anything going on, just so that I've got a little bit more room so that I can stand up and show you in all of its glory here. I am in love. It's massive. I'm a 6 foot tall man, and as you can see, It's 4 inches off my fingertips at both sides in the points. But of course there's points and indents because you can see the shape of it. It's this wonderful stellated octagon here. But if in the hollows between the points, what happens is it kind of makes for natural sleeves. So I haven't needed to put any holes in for armholes here, because with one point falling behind the wrist and one point falling in front of it in each case, because my hands go into the little snugs there, you get this wonder. It's so wearable for that reason. It's almost like I've got sleeves there waiting to go, which I don't have. It's just how that's serendipity. I'm not going to lie, I didn't plan that at all. So here is the poncho in all its glory. It's so warm and so lovely, and it's so snuggly. This is of course made with, excuse me, bring you back to some sort of oop, there we go. Where were we before? We were about there, weren't we? So this is made with the Sockmatician edition yarn in the DK weight, and I've used, I get very breathless when I wear this because it's very heavy. It's probably about 1,800 grams of yarn. That's a lot, isn't it? But it's, you don't, the joy of it is, don't be put off by the size that it is. You don't need to worry about that when you're making it. If you want to make a slightly smaller one, you can make a slightly smaller one. You'll use less yarn. It's, as I said, it's the same 4-row repeat that just works its way out, getting larger and larger and larger. If you want to, I use 6 repeats for each colour here, or 8 in the orange, but 6 for the yellow, green, blue and purple. But if you wanted to do 6 up here and then 4, 4, 4 and 4, then obviously then you can basically just stop if you want. If you didn't want to do stripes, if you just wanted to use 2 standard colours, or what would look amazing would be a long change colour gradient, or 2 even, then you can just keep going, not worry about where you're placing the stripes, and just stop whenever it's long enough for you. That would be amazing. I can't wait to see what colour combinations people are going to want to come up with. So that was talking about how large it is. There's a couple of new innovations in it. As you can see, the cowl here is what I wanted to show. I didn't want, can you see here where the colour changes from the red to the grey? I didn't want that to have to be necessarily exactly on where the edge, exactly on the colour change there, because I thought it's going to pull. There's weight in it. It's going to pull itself down, and which it does. So if I undo this cowl, can you see what I've done is I've reversed the colour. So we've got this. So we actually, when I started knitting it, it was with the grey on the outside, and then I changed when I was 3/4 the way through the length of the collar, just to give that little buffer zone, so that when the cowl collar is down, you're not going to suddenly see the grey showing up that way, and everything is going to stay nicely intact and in place. What it does mean, and it does, of course, that colour switch works very, very nicely. The whole thing is completely reversible. So if I pull the cowl collar out the other way and then tuck it like this, it works just the same way, and you can wear the poncho with, if I can find the neck hole, you can wear the poncho on the, I call it the subtle side, so it's still just as beautiful, it's still just as lovely. All of the increases and decreases still work just exactly the same way, because it is completely reversible, but then you've got the colours of the rainbow flag receding slightly into the background a little bit, just the colour a bit there, so you've got the more subtle side there with the foreground being the standard colour. I think both of these work exactly nicely. I'm sort of torn between knowing what's my favourite. I think I probably will wear it most of the time with the zingier sides of the colours facing outwards, particularly if we get into Pride month next month, if we are allowed out of the house, if there are any gatherings which are permitted for Pride, then I would certainly want to be celebrating Pride by wearing it like this. As you can see, it comes down to, well, the points hang to just below my knees. It really is massive. It's so much. As I say, I'm going to take it off now while I show you some of the other stuff that's in it. There's a couple of innovations which I'm really proud of. If you can see where the colour changes happen, working their way down here, every time there is a colour change, working down the line of decreases here, for example, you can see the colour change happens at a point where the two outside diagonals come together, and the stitch that comes out of that, there we go, the stitch that comes out of those three coming together is the new colour. And I wanted to make sure that that was standard all the way across. So again, these three greens come together, and the stitch that is made from those three greens, so the colour changes were done on the on the actual decrease row. So there's 4 rows, as I say, and every decrease row I would change the colour and perform the decrease with the new colour, so that you would get that single new coloured stitch coming out of the lines of the 3 stitches joining together. Now what that meant, here it is again, so the blues come together and the purple stitch comes out of it. What that meant was, because of the way that double-knitted brioche is finished, and the nicest way to finish it is to Kitchener graft the 2 sides together with a sort of, it's more like how you do it in double knitting than you would, maybe you do in brioche, I genuinely don't know the answer to that. So you can see the pattern just goes directly to the very edge with absolutely no, this hasn't been blocked by the way, so it's a little uneven on the inside, that's my tension issues there. The pattern doesn't need anything else, it just comes right to the very edge, the brioche finish is there. But what I didn't want to do was have to do those that final row of decreases to get the points to come together, and then have to build up an extra row of stitches with the Kitchener graft, which would put a little tail onto the underneath that lovely point. There would be a 1 stitch length tail. I didn't want to do that. What I wanted to do was have those points coming together right on the edge of the fabric, which meant I had to figure out a way of doing that final row of decreases and incorporating those decreases into the graft itself. Well, it's actually not anywhere near as complicated as it sounds, and what it does give you, if I show you here, is these 3 lines come together perfectly on the edge of the fabric, exactly as I wanted them to, without a stalk sticking off there with an extra row. And as you can see on the other side as well, there they are coming together, and the last stitch that comes out of them is the stitches of the Kitchener graft. I'm so pleased when I worked that out, and when I worked out actually it's much simpler than it sounds. It gives exactly what I wanted for this. I could not be more pleased. This is so gorgeous. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this podcast episode here. It's just over the hour, which is about perfect for me. Thank you so much for being part of my ongoing journey. What I'd like to do is round up. I'll show don't forget, I will show the photographs from the Heath Walk of the poncho from yesterday as soon as I finish speaking. But one of the things that I have really taken to enjoying in this lockdown period has been my Zoom be-alongs. And I call it my be-along for people who may not know that this is happening yet. Stick these in your diary. Every single Thursday night, I think we've done 7 so far, maybe it's 8, I can't remember how many we started with. I can't remember what date we started on. Knowing that I sympathise so much with people who are suffering from isolation and feeling the restrictions of being in lockdown all the time. That's like that. I haven't. Okay. I wanted to make sure that I could reach out to people and say to people, come and talk to me and talk with each other, and let's share and let's enjoy crafting together, or just talking about crafting together, or just being together. And that's the point. So every Thursday night I host, it's usually somewhere between 2 and 3 hours long, depending on who's there and whether whether anyone else has got other things to do that night, on Zoom. It is the Zoom Be Along. And I call it the Be Along because it is, as I say, it's just an opportunity for people to come together and just be. It is open to anyone and everyone. Absolutely anyone can take part. All that we do is we are respectful of each other. We try not to talk over the top of each other. I try to structure it a little bit and make sure that everyone gets a chance to talk if they want to. People have come in with knitting, with crochet, with tatting, with bobbin lace, bobbin lace, with all sorts of different crafts, and sometimes people bring no craft. It's just an opportunity for people to get together and chat, and there's a really, really lovely group of people who are returning week after week, and I'm making some genuine friends in that group. People, so far it's largely, not exclusively by any means, but it's largely been people that I have had some kind of interaction with in the past, either on Instagram or on YouTube, or having met out and about at the various different festivals and classes that I've taught. But it's not that at all. It is by no means cliquey in any way. It is open to absolutely everybody, and I love it when new people arrive. We start at 8 p.m. every Thursday night, and it is on Zoom. And the way to access the room, if you haven't done it, if you go to my Instagram, okay, if you don't follow me on Instagram, here's the plug. If you don't follow me on Instagram, please do. Head over to Instagram, click follow or subscribe, whatever it is, because that's the way you'll keep best up to date with all the things that I'm doing and all of any updates or anything like that. The other way would be to go to my website, which is sockmatician.com, and sign up for my newsletter. If you just go to sockmatician.com and wait around on that first page for 10 seconds, it'll take you that long to read what's on the page anyway, but if you just stay there, then a little window flies in with a sign up where you can sign up. I'm never going to sell your details. It's all GDPR. It's done through MailChimp, so the restrictions are the rules are quite tight on what you can and can't do with that information. And it's all done. I don't send many newsletters out. It's usually only when I've got a new pattern or something big that I want to announce. But the main way is to go to Instagram, and if you click on even if you're not following me, go to my Instagram profile, which is just Sockmatician on Instagram, and then go to my profile, and there's a link there in the bio which has it takes you to my link tree, and on my link tree you can access the website, you can access this podcast, you can access my Ravelry stuff, but also a few minutes before 8 o'clock UK time, so we're on British summer time at the moment, which is 1 hour ahead of GMT, so we're GMT plus 1 at the moment, so wherever you are in the world, 8 p.m. UK time, I will activate a link on my link tree that says Zoom meeting. Now all you need to do is click on my link tree link in my Instagram profile and then click on the words Zoom meeting, and it'll take you straight to the room where I am doing the Be Along. Now I would love it if more people came along. It's always going to be wonderful to see people and have new perspectives. I urge you to come and be part of this ever-growing community of very, very friendly, lovely, caring, kind-hearted people. It is becoming the highlight of my week, very, very much so, and I can't wait to share it with more people. The other thing that I want to very quickly talk about, I may as well use this as my own platform for my own plugs, is because of this is genuinely not a knee-jerk reaction to lockdown restrictions at the moment. It's something I've been thinking of doing for a while. Because of the restrictions on my movement in the knitting world, obviously because of the problems I encountered with social justice warriors last year, I'm not going to be doing public teaching anymore, but that was a big part of my income, and I needed to find ways of addressing that. And when I put out the Kickstarter for the Double-Knitted Brioche book, one of the pledge reward levels was I was saying Skype back then, it's become Zoom has been the way I do it, but Skype class, a one-to-one Skype class with me for a certain level of pledge. Now I've done 2 of those, there's a couple more still to come. I've done 2 of those so far, and they've genuinely been much more successful than I ever thought possible. I couldn't believe it. I was with using different camera setups, I'm able to show people details and get a chance to see what they're doing as well. And all of the classes that I used to teach at festivals and shops, I am now going to be offering on Zoom. Now, they are a one-to-one. I'm not going to be opening it to pairs or groups of people. It's literally a one-to-one, and it's a chance to have an experience with me. So there'll be a 2 to 2.5 hour class, and my introductory offer is £100. So I know that sounds quite steep, but if you think about it, I'm an expert in the field, but I'm also me. And I want to make sure that I give someone a real experience of getting to know me and me getting to know them, so we can really find a friendship footing as well as doing the class. So I send out the handout in advance, and we work together and either learn double knitting or learn double knitted lace, or we can do some knit nerdism, or some strand tarsia. All of the things that I have always taught, I will now be starting to teach on a one-to-one online. So the introductory offer is £100, and it's going to be for a one-to-one exclusive. You would never get that level of attention and focus from a teacher in a group class. That's one of the reasons why it's a little bit more expensive, but also it has to cover my time, and it has to cover the expertise and the knowledge that I put into it. So it sounds like I'm trying to justify this. I've had to justify it to myself, but I also want it to be, I want it to feel like an exclusive thing. I want it to feel like what you're getting is you're not just learning double knitting or whatever it is you've chosen to do. You're having the experience that you can't get anywhere else in the world. So this will hopefully open things up for anybody currently. Of course, now everything is moving online anyway, so it's perfect for that. But if you are if you're somebody who's always wanted to take a class with me, but I've not come to your part of the world at a time when you can do so, and now you are feeling, oh, if he's not teaching anymore, I'll never get the chance, now's the opportunity. So over the next couple of weeks, watch this space. Do sign up for my newsletter if you're interested, because I'm going to be putting together all the stuff on my website, with information on how to sort of contact me specifically for the one-to-one classes, with selections of what class you want to take and all this, and I can send out forms and but I need to get everything set up. But I just wanted to let you know that that's what's going to be happening. I'm going to be doing this going forward, and I'm really, really excited about it, because the two that I've done so far have been incredibly good fun. I felt that I get so much more out of a one-to-one than I do normally in a class, but whereas if there's 12 people out there in front of me, I don't necessarily get a chance to get to know everybody there. But I felt that I've started to forge really, really firm friendships with the two people that I have taught these with so far, and I want to build on that and make sure that these are something that money can't buy nowhere else. You can only get these from me. Other plugs, don't forget, through Sockmatician.com at the Sockma shop, you can still buy the Sockmatician edition yarns. Here's some of the 4-ply version. Here's the lower end of the darker end of the rainbow there. We've got the Bruton, the Gallo, the Taylor, and the Baker there in the 4 colours, and here's the higher end of the spectrum with the Chapel orange, the Garland, the yellow, the green Featherstone, and the red is Montagnier there. And we've also got the 2 neutral colours, Milk and Delavry here, the dark and the light grey. Those are available in the 4-ply and in the DK weights, and they're all available from the Sockma shop, which is sockmatician.com. You can also buy there if you are interested in my book, Guys Knit. I'm saying this because I know there's a lot of new subscribers on YouTube who may not know this stuff already. I have a beginner's book if you want to teach somebody in your life how to knit, or if someone is showing an interest, or if you'd like to have a little bit of an insight into my crazy brain and my stupid sense of humour, then while the book is available from other outlets as well, I'm the only place in the world where you can buy a signed copy. That's also there from, and you can put on the form when you're purchasing the book who you want me to sign it to. So if you're buying it on behalf of a friend, then I can sign it to your friend as well. And don't forget, there are also the badges, the Sockmatician logo on there as well. The enamel pins there, all available from the Sockma shop at sockmatician.com. Subscribe to my newsletter to get information on when these classes are coming out. Head over to my Instagram channel and sign up there for so that you can be kept in the loop for the Zoom be-alongs. Please, please, please come to the be-along. I cannot wait to meet more of you. And thank you so much for being part of my ongoing journey. Your support will always mean a lot. And now at 1 hour and 15 minutes, this podcast episode really is a finished object. Just remember, life itself is a work in progress. Take it more than ever before, just one stitch at a time. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye-bye.